1 month after first contact, Jeho and Yi Jin stood in the Great Hall of the Galactic Council. The room was massive, built to fit beings of many sizes. Most were much larger than humans. The ceiling rose at least 20 meters high, and the door they had entered through could fit 3 elephants walking side by side. "I feel like a child at an adult's table," Yi Jin whispered. Jeho nodded, but kept his face calm. "We may be small, but we belong here as much as they do." A new human joined them, walking quickly across the polished floor. Do-hyun Choi had been Earth's top diplomat. Now he was humanity's voice to the stars. His face showed the strain of learning alien customs in just a few weeks. "The council is ready for us," Do-hyun said. "Remember, show respect but not weakness." The 3 humans walked to the center of the room. Around them, in rising circles, sat representatives of 50 different species. Some were nearly as small as humans. Others were even larger than the grander. One species looked like floating clouds of gas. Another had 6 limbs and skin that changed colors as they moved. The head counselor, a grander named Thex, spoke in a deep voice that filled the hall. "We welcome the representatives of Earth. Today we will determine your classification in the galactic community." A large screen appeared in the air. It showed different categories with descriptions. "All sentient species are placed in classes based on their physical attributes," Thex explained. Class 1 species, like the grander, have superior strength, size, and durability. Class 2 species have moderate physical capabilities. Class 3 species have specialized abilities but limited strength. Thex looked down at the humans with what seemed like pity. "Based on our scans and observations, humans will be classified as Class 4. This is for species with minimal physical advantages, but sufficient intelligence for space travel." Do-hyun stepped forward. "With respect, Council Head, there is more to humanity than our size." Murmurs and sounds that might have been laughter came from some of the larger aliens. "The classification is not an insult," said another council member, a 6-limbed being twice the size of a human. "It is simply a fact. Your bodies are fragile. Your muscles are weak compared to higher classes. You tire quickly. Your only notable features are your brain size relative to your bodies and your hand dexterity. Our achievements," Do-hyun began, "are impressive for your limitations," Thex interrupted. "But the galaxy operates on objective measures. Class 4 species receive protection from the Council and limited trading rights. You should be grateful. Some species are Class 5 and receive only protection." Jeho felt his face grow hot with anger, but he remained silent. This was not the time to prove them right about human emotional responses. After the classification was made official, the humans were shown to their quarters. They were given a small room in a far corner of the council building. The furniture was too big, the ceilings unnecessarily high. "This is insulting," Yi Jin said when they were alone. "They treat us like children." "No," Jeho corrected. "They treat us like pets, clever animals that have learned some tricks." Do-hyun sat heavily in a chair designed for a much larger being. "The classification affects everything. Our trading rights, our territory claims, even which parts of council meetings we can attend. Class 4 species rarely get to speak on important matters." Jeho walked to the window. Outside, he could see the massive city that housed the Galactic Council. Ships of all sizes moved through the sky. Most were much larger than anything humans had built. "Then we need to change our classification," he said simply. Yi Jin laughed without humor. "And how do we do that?" "Grow taller. Become stronger overnight." Jeho turned to face his companions. His eyes held a determined look. "No, we show them what humans can really do. Size isn't everything." And it's time the galaxy learned that lesson. For the next week, the human representatives attended council meetings. They sat in the back row, rarely invited to speak. When they did share their thoughts, the larger aliens nodded politely but quickly moved on. One evening, a new human arrived at their quarters. Su Min Lee was an engineer who had helped build Earth's fastest ships. She had been sent to join the delegation and learn about alien technology. "How are things going?" she asked after being introduced. "Not well," Do-hyun admitted. "No one takes us seriously. We're just the cute new species that learn to use tools." Soo-min frowned. There must be a way to change their minds. "Unless we can grow 2 meters taller overnight. I don't see how," Yi-jin said. Soo-min was quiet for a moment. Then she smiled. "What if we don't need to be bigger? What if we just need to prove ourselves?" The next day, during a council session about trade routes, Soo-min raised her hand. The council head Thex looked surprised but nodded for her to speak. "I have heard about the Galactic Olympics," Soo-min said, her voice clear despite her nervousness. "Earth would like to enter." The room fell silent. Then several aliens began making sounds that the translators identified as laughter. Even Thex seemed amused. "The Olympics are held every 50 years to showcase the achievements of all species," Thex explained slowly, as if talking to a child. "But they include physical challenges that Class 4 species cannot hope to compete in." "We would like to try anyway," Soo-min insisted. A large, 6-armed alien leaned forward. "The smallest competitor last time was twice your size. The strongest could lift 10 times what your strongest human can manage." Jaiho stood up beside Soo-min. "Is there a rule that says we cannot enter?" Thex consulted with other council members. Finally, he shook his massive head. "The ancient rules state that any sentient species may participate. But this is foolish. You will embarrass yourselves." "That's our choice to make," Jaiho said firmly. The council reluctantly approved Earth's application. When the humans returned to their quarters, Do-hyun was furious. "What were you thinking? The Olympics are in 3 months. We'll be humiliated in front of the entire galaxy. Or we'll surprise them." Soo-min countered. "We need to send for our best." 2 weeks later, Min Ho-kang arrived at the council world. He was Earth's strongest weightlifter, the only human who could lift 5 times his own body weight. He was tall for a human, with muscles that showed years of training. But when he stood next to the grander athletes who were practicing in the council's training facility, he looked like a child. "Is this some kind of joke?" asked a grander lifter. "This tiny being is your champion." Min Ho didn't respond to the taunt. He simply walked to a weight that was used for grander children's training. It was twice what he had ever lifted on Earth. The gravity on the council world was slightly stronger than Earth's, making it even harder. "Don't," Jaiho whispered. "You'll hurt yourself." Min Ho ignored him. He positioned himself under the weight, took a deep breath, and lifted. His face turned red. His muscles shook, but the weight moved. The grander athletes stopped laughing. They watched with surprise as Min Ho held the weight for 5 seconds before carefully setting it down. "Impressive," one grander admitted. "For your size." Min Ho looked at Jaiho. "I can do better. I just need to adapt to the gravity here." Jaiho nodded slowly. Something was starting to form in his mind. The aliens kept focusing on size and natural strength, but humans had something they might not understand yet. "We need more than just strength," Jaiho told his team that night. "We need to show them what really makes humans special." "And what's that?" asked Do-hyun, still skeptical. Jaiho smiled. "Our ability to adapt, to learn, to overcome. We may not win, but we're going to show the galaxy that the strongest species isn't always the biggest." The day of the Galactic Olympics arrived. The human team traveled to a neutral planet where the games were held. The stadium was enormous, built to hold beings of all sizes from across the galaxy. Min Ho looked small next to the other athletes. Many were twice his height. Some were 4 times his weight. A few had extra limbs or special abilities that humans could only dream of. "Remember our training," Jaiho told Min Ho before the first event. "Don't try to match their power. Use your efficiency. Use your mind." The first event was a simple lift. Each competitor would try to lift increasingly heavy weights until they failed. The grander champion, a massive being named Drog, smiled down at Minho. "You should go first." "Little human," Drog said. "Save yourself the weight." Minho nodded calmly. He stepped up to the first weight, which was light by grander standards but heavy for a human. The crowd watched, some with interest, most with amusement. Minho closed his eyes for a moment. Zhe Young had taught him to center his mind before each lift. He pictured every muscle working together in perfect harmony. Then he lifted. The weight rose smoothly. Minho completed the lift and set it down with perfect control. The judges nodded, and he moved to the next weight. As the weights increased, competitors began to drop out. Minho kept going, his face showing no strain, his movements staying smooth and efficient. He was using exactly the amount of energy needed for each lift, no more and no less. Finally, only Minho, Drog, and 3 other large aliens remained. The weight was now 3 times what any human had ever lifted on Earth. The crowd had stopped laughing. They were watching with surprise and growing respect. Minho approached the weight. Jiho could see that this was beyond what they had trained for. Minho would fail here, but he had already gone further than anyone expected. Minho closed his eyes again. This time, he stood still for nearly a minute. The crowd began to murmur. What was he doing? Jiho knew. Minho was connecting with the team. All the humans closed their eyes too, focusing their minds on Minho, lending him their mental energy. Minho opened his eyes. He bent down, gripped the weight, and lifted. For a moment, it seemed impossible. The weight didn't move. Then, slowly, it began to rise. Minho's face turned red. Sweat poured down his body, but the weight kept rising until he held it at full extension. The stadium fell silent. Then a wave of sound erupted as beings of all species cheered. Minho had not won. Drog and 1 other alien would lift even heavier weights, but he had done what no one thought possible. The next events were races of different lengths. Again, humans were not expected to do well. Their legs were shorter, their lungs smaller than many species. But in the long-distance race, something unexpected happened. While the larger aliens started fast, they began to slow down over time. The human runners maintained a steady pace. They didn't lead, but they didn't fall behind either. "What's happening?" Thex asked Hojun, who was monitoring the humans' vital signs. "Efficiency," Hojun explained. "Humans evolved as persistence hunters. We can't sprint like some species, but we can keep going for a very long time." In the final lap, as the other competitors tired, the human runners maintained their pace. They passed alien after alien. They didn't win, but they finished third, a result no one had predicted. The final event of the day was an obstacle course that tested strength, speed, and endurance. Many larger competitors failed to finish, their massive bodies unable to navigate the tight spaces or their muscles too tired from earlier exertion. Minho completed the course with a time that put him in 5th place overall. As he crossed the finish line, the crowd cheered again, louder than before. Thex approached Jiho as they left the stadium. "Your species has surprised us today," the Grander admitted. Jiho smiled. "This is just the beginning." Day 2 of the Olympics brought the most feared event, the breaking point. This challenge tested competitors to their limits both physically and mentally. The event took place in a special arena with a central platform. Each athlete would stand on the platform while it gradually increased gravity, temperature, and other stresses. A helmet would create mental challenges at the same time. The last one standing would win. "This is the most dangerous event," Yi Jin told Jiho. "Several competitors have been seriously injured in past games." Jiho watched as Minho prepared. The human was calm, his eyes closed as Zhe Young gave him final instructions. "Remember, your mind controls your limits," she said. "When your body wants to quit, your brain decides whether to listen." The competitors took their places on the platform. Minho looked tiny next to the massive aliens. Drog, the grander champion, stood tall and confident. "Begin," announced the head judge. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then the gravity slowly increased. The aliens with 6 or more limbs had an advantage here, able to spread their weight. The grander's thick bones and powerful muscles helped them stand strong. Minho shifted his stance. Hejun had trained him to distribute his weight in the most efficient way possible. He bent his knees slightly, aligning his body to use the least energy. As the gravity increased to twice Earth normal, some competitors began to struggle. At 3 times normal, several dropped to their knees and were removed from the platform. The temperature began to rise. Sweat poured down Minho's face, but he remained focused. Jia had taught him breathing techniques to control his body temperature. Drog looked at Minho with surprise. "You're still standing, little human." Minho didn't waste energy responding. He needed every bit of focus now. The mental challenges began. The helmet created illusions of fear and pain. It made competitors feel like they were falling, drowning, or burning. It created confusion and doubt. Here, the human brain's adaptability became a true advantage. Minho had practiced separating his mind from physical sensations. The human team watched as aliens began to panic, their massive bodies shaking despite their physical strength. One by one, competitors fell. Some collapsed from the gravity. Others broke under the mental strain. Soon, only 5 remained. Drog, Minho, and 3 aliens from different species. The gravity increased to 5 times Earth normal. Minho's legs shook. His muscles screamed for relief. But he kept standing, his mind focused on one thought. Each second was a victory. Another competitor fell. Then another. Only Minho, Drog, and a tall, thin alien with multiple arms remained. The thin alien suddenly screamed and collapsed, clutching its head. The mental challenges had become too much. Now only Minho and Drog remained. The grander was struggling, his massive body fighting against the crushing gravity. But his physical advantages were keeping him upright. Minho felt his consciousness starting to fade. His vision blurred. His legs began to buckle. In that moment, he connected with the human team. Jaiho, Yi-Jin, Du-hyun, Su-min, Hejun, and Ji-young all closed their eyes, focusing their minds on Minho. Minho felt a surge of mental strength. He straightened his back slightly. His breathing steadied. Drog stared at him in disbelief. "How are you still standing?" he gasped. Minho finally spoke, his voice strained but clear. "Humans, don't quit." The gravity increased again. Minho's body couldn't take much more, but neither could Drog's. The massive alien's legs began to shake violently. Suddenly, Drog let out a roar of frustration and fear. The mental challenges had found his breaking point. The mighty grander fell to his knees, then collapsed completely. Minho stood alone on the platform. The judges quickly ended the event before the human could be injured. As the gravity returned to normal, Minho sank to his knees, exhausted but conscious. The stadium erupted in cheers. No Class 4 species had ever won any event in the Olympics before. Thex and the other council members watched in stunned silence. Something impossible had just happened, and they had no explanation for it. Minho's victory in the breaking point changed everything. The news spread quickly through the galaxy. A Class 4 species had defeated a grander in the most challenging event of the Olympics. Many couldn't believe it. The day after the event, the human team was summoned to meet with the Galactic Council's Science Division. When they arrived, they found a room full of alien scientists examining data from the competition. "We have questions," said the head scientist, a tall being with pale blue skin and 4 arms. Minho Kang should not have been able to withstand that level of stress. "We need to understand how this happened." Hejun and Ji-young stepped forward with their data. They had been monitoring Minho during the entire event. "Look at his brain activity," Ji-young said, showing the scans. See how these patterns change and adapt to each new challenge. The human brain constantly rewires itself. The alien scientists studied the data with growing interest. And here, Hajun added, pointing to another set of readings, you can see how his body adapts at the cellular level. His muscles change how they use energy. His lungs change how they process oxygen. One of the aliens, a specialist in comparative biology, spoke up. We've studied thousands of species. None adapt this quickly within a single lifetime. Most species are specialists, evolved for specific environments. Humans are generalists, Jaiho explained. Earth has many different environments: hot deserts, frozen mountains, dense forests, open plains. Humans learn to live in all of them. But that doesn't explain this level of adaptation, argued a grander scientist. Jai-young smiled. There's something else special about humans: our brains. She explained how human neuroplasticity worked, how human brains formed new connections constantly throughout life, how humans could learn new skills at any age, how the mind and body work together in ways other species couldn't match. Most importantly, He-jun added, humans can share these adaptations through teaching and learning. What one human discovers, all humans can learn. The alien scientists began talking excitedly among themselves. This was something new, something they hadn't considered before. Later that day, Minho competed in more events. He didn't win them all. The physical advantages of the larger species were still real, but he performed far better than anyone had expected. After the day's events, Thex invited Jaiho to his private chambers. The grander seemed troubled. Your species continues to surprise us, Thex said. Our researchers have been studying your data all day. They have a theory about humans. What kind of theory? Jaiho asked. They believe humans evolved differently than most species in the galaxy. Most evolved to become perfect for their specific environments. The grander evolved for a high-gravity world with large predators. We needed size and strength to survive. Jaiho nodded. That makes sense. But humans, Thex continued, evolved for change itself. Your planet's environments changed rapidly and often. Instead of evolving for one perfect environment, you evolved to adapt to any environment. Is that unusual? Jaiho asked. Extremely. Most planets have stable environments for millions of years. Earth seems to have been unusually chaotic, and it produced an unusually adaptable species. As Jaiho left Thex's chambers, he found Drog waiting outside. The grander champion who had lost to Minho in the breaking point looked different now, less confident, more thoughtful. I did not understand before, Drog said simply. I thought strength was only in the body. There are many kinds of strength, Jaiho replied. Drog nodded slowly. Your Minho has a strong mind. When my mind broke under the pressure, his kept going. Would you like to train with us tomorrow? Jaiho asked. Perhaps we can learn from each other. The massive alien seemed surprised by the offer. Then he smiled, showing large teeth that somehow no longer seemed threatening. I would like that, Drog said. Perhaps strength can be learned after all. As Jaiho walked back to the human quarters, he realized something important was happening. The galaxy was beginning to see humans differently. Not as weak beings to be pitied, but as a unique species with strengths of their own. 2 months had passed since the humans decided to enter the Galactic Olympics. A new member joined their team. Jo Young-nam was a neuroscientist who had studied the human brain for 20 years. She arrived with special equipment and immediately began working with He-jun. After a week of tests on Minho and the other athletes, she called everyone together. I found something amazing, Jai-young said. She showed them a 3D image of Minho's brain. Watch what happens when Minho lifts weights. The image changed colors as different parts of the brain lit up. Now watch what happens when he just thinks about lifting the same weights. The colors were almost identical. I don't understand, said Do-yun. What does this mean? It means, Jai-young explained, that the human brain can't tell the difference between doing something and practicing it perfectly in your mind. When you imagine doing something, your brain forms the same connections as when you actually do it. Jai-ho leaned forward. So we can train even when we're not physically training. Exactly, Jai-young said. Other species can visualize, of course, but human brains form new neural pathways much faster than any species I've studied in the Council's database. We can literally rewire our brains through focused practice and visualization. This changed everything. The humans now split their training into physical sessions and mental sessions. When their bodies needed rest, they would lie still while Jai-young guided them through detailed mental practices. Imagine every muscle fiber, she would tell Minho. Feel the exact amount of force needed. No more, no less. Perfect efficiency. One day, a grander ambassador named Krell visited their training facility. He watched as Minho lay still with sensors attached to his head. "What is he doing?" Krell asked. "Sleeping before the big competition." "He's training," Jai-ho explained. Krell laughed, a deep rumbling sound. "Lying still is not training." "For humans, the mind and body work together," Jai-ho said. "We're training his brain to use his body perfectly." Krell shook his massive head. "Strange methods won't help. The Olympics test raw power and endurance. Mental tricks cannot change physical reality." After Krell left, Su-min looked worried. What if he's right? What if all this isn't enough? Jai-ho didn't answer right away. He watched as Min-ho got up from the mental training session and moved to a weight. The human lifted it with such perfect form that it seemed almost easy, though Jai-ho knew the weight was at the very edge of human capability. "We're not trying to match their strength," Jai-ho said finally. "We're finding our own path." As the Olympics drew closer, the human team worked harder. Hajun's scans showed that Min-ho's muscles were now 30% more efficient than when he arrived. Jai-young's data showed his brain could activate those muscles with precision that amazed even her. "There's one more thing we need," Jai-ho told the team 1 week before the competition. "The other species train alone. Each athlete works by themselves, but humans have always been stronger together." From that day on, they trained as a unit. When Min-ho lifted, everyone focused on him, lending their mental energy. When he ran, they ran with him in their minds. Jai-young's scans showed something unexpected. Their brain waves began to synchronize. "It's like they're becoming one organism," she told Ji-ho privately. "I've never seen anything like it." The night before the Olympics, the human team gathered in their quarters. They were no longer just representatives from Earth. They had become something more. A team united by a single purpose. "No matter what happens tomorrow," Jai-ho told them, "we've already proven something important. We've shown that humans don't quit. We adapt. We learn. We grow." Min-ho nodded. "And tomorrow, we'll show the galaxy that the strongest species isn't the biggest." As they prepared for sleep, Jai-young shared one last piece of news. "I've completed my analysis of all the alien species in the competition," she said. "None of them have our level of neuroplasticity. None of them can adapt as quickly. That's our secret weapon." Jai-ho smiled. Maybe, just maybe, they had a chance. The final day of the Olympics arrived. While the grander and other large species won most of the events as expected, humans had made their mark. Min-ho had won the breaking point event. Other human athletes had placed in the top 5 in several competitions. No one was laughing at the small beings from Earth anymore. After the closing ceremony, the human team was called to the Galactic Council's main chamber. All 50 representatives from different species were present. The room was silent as they entered. Fex stood and addressed the council. "These Olympics have shown us something unexpected. Our classification system may need revision." Murmurs spread through the chamber. The classification system had been unchanged for thousands of years. "This small species," Fex continued, gesturing to the humans, "has demonstrated abilities our system does not account for. They adapt quickly. They learn. They work together in ways we have not seen before. A 6-armed alien stood up, but they are still physically weaker than Class 1 or Class 2 species. Facts are facts. True, agreed Thex, but perhaps physical strength is not the only measure of a species' capability. For the next hour, the council debated. Some argued that the classification system should remain unchanged. Others suggested creating special exceptions for humans. The humans themselves sat quietly, letting the aliens work through their own thoughts. Finally, a new voice spoke. It was Drog, the grander champion who had lost to Minho. "I have trained with these humans for the past week," Drog said. "I have learned things about my own body and mind that I never knew before. They may be small, but they are teachers. They are adapters. They see things differently." One by one, other athletes who had competed against the humans stood and shared similar stories. The humans had changed how they thought about training, about competition, about their own abilities. At last, Thex called for a vote. "I propose a new classification system, one that measures not just physical attributes, but adaptability, problem-solving, and learning capacity." The vote was close, but it passed. For the next several days, scientists from all species worked together to create the new system. When it was finished, the humans were called back to the council chamber. "Under our new system," Thex announced, "species are classified in multiple categories. Earth humans are classified as Class 4 in physical strength." Jaiho felt a moment of disappointment. After everything, they were still Class 4. But Thex wasn't finished. "Humans are classified as Class 1 in adaptability, Class 1 in learning capacity, and Class 1 in social cooperation. No other species has achieved such high marks in these categories." The chamber was silent for a moment. Then a ripple of approving sounds moved through the alien representatives. "Captain Jaiho Kim," Thex continued, "you are appointed as Earth's permanent representative to the Galactic Council. Yi-Jin Park and Su-Min Lee will establish the first human embassy on our world." As the humans left the chamber, they found Drog waiting for them. The massive alien bowed slightly, a gesture he had learned from them. "I will visit Earth," he said. "I want to learn more about how humans think, and perhaps I can teach some grander strength techniques to your people." "You'll be most welcome," Jaiho said, smiling. 3 months later, a new alien ship arrived at Earth. As the visitor stepped out onto Earth soil, a young child approached, staring up at the tall, blue-skinned being. "You're so big," the child said. "Are you the strongest person in the galaxy?" The alien looked down. "No, small one. The strongest species isn't always the biggest." "Then who is the strongest?" the child asked. The alien gestured around at the humans gathering to welcome the visitor. "The strongest are those who never stop adapting, never give up, never stop learning. Your people have taught the galaxy this important lesson." The child looked thoughtful. "So humans are strong." "Very strong," the alien agreed. "Just not in the way we expected." The visitor looked up at the sky. "And that is why the galaxy needs you. You see things differently. You solve problems differently. You make all of us stronger by teaching us to adapt." As the alien followed the human delegation toward the meeting hall, it understood for the first time why this small, seemingly fragile species would change the galaxy forever. Not through force or size, but through their endless ability to adapt, learn, and grow. A small lab was set up in the human quarters. Earth had sent more people to help with the Olympic effort. Among them was Dr. Hejun Sung, a scientist who studied how human bodies changed under different conditions. "I've been watching Minho train," Hejun said to the team gathered around him. "Something fascinating is happening." He showed them scans of Minho's muscles before and after 2 weeks of training on the council world. His muscle fibers are changing, not getting bigger, but denser, more efficient. "Is that normal?" asked Jaiho. "Not exactly," Hejun replied. "Most species' bodies are what they are. They might get stronger with training, but they don't change their basic structure. Humans are different. We adapt. This gave Jeho an idea. How far can we push this adaptation? Over the next month, the human team created a special training program. They built chambers that could change gravity, temperature, and air pressure. Min-ho and other human athletes who had arrived spent hours each day in these chambers, pushing their bodies to adapt to extreme conditions. One day, Thex and other council members came to observe the humans training. "What are you doing?" Thex asked, watching Min-ho run in a chamber set to higher gravity than the council world. "We're adapting," Jeho explained. "Humans can change to suit their environment." "All species adapt over many generations," said a tall, thin alien with 6 eyes. "This is nothing special." "No," said Hejun, joining the conversation. "Humans adapt within a single lifetime, sometimes within weeks or months." The aliens looked skeptical, but they couldn't deny what they were seeing. Min-ho was now lifting weights that would have been impossible for him when he first arrived. "It won't be enough," Thex said. "The Olympics test the limits of physical ability. Your adaptations are impressive for your size, but size still matters." After the council members left, the human team met to discuss their progress. "Thex is right," Min-ho admitted. "I'm getting stronger every day, but I'll never match a Grander's natural strength. They're just too big." "Then we need something else," said Sumin. "Something beyond size." Hejun had been quiet, looking at his data screens. Now he spoke up. "I think I found something. Look at these brain scans of Min-ho before and after training." The images showed colorful patterns that had changed over time. "What are we looking at?" asked Yi-jin. "Neural pathways," Hejun explained. "The connections in Min-ho's brain are changing even faster than his muscles. His brain is learning exactly how to use every bit of strength in the most efficient way possible." "So," asked Do-hyun, "the aliens have brains too?" "Yes, but their neural pathways are more fixed, more stable. Humans have incredible neuroplasticity. Our brains physically change and rewire themselves throughout our lives." Jeho began to understand. "So we might not be as strong, but we can learn to use what strength we have better than any other species," Hejun finished. "Efficiency over raw power." The team worked late into the night, developing a new training plan. They would focus not just on building strength, but on perfect technique, on eliminating wasted energy, on making each movement exactly right. The next day, Min-ho demonstrated what they had learned. He lifted a weight that was still modest by Grander standards, but his movement was perfect. Not a single wasted motion, not a hint of inefficiency. A few Grander athletes watched from the doorway. One stepped forward after Min-ho finished. "Your technique is good," the alien admitted, "but technique can only take you so far." Min-ho smiled. "We'll see." As the Grander left, Jeho felt a new sense of hope. The aliens were still focused on size and strength. They didn't understand yet what humans could do. But soon, the whole galaxy would learn. Captain Jeho Kim stared at the screen in front of him. The strange signal pulsed with a steady rhythm that could not be natural. After 20 years in space, he knew when something was made by intelligent hands. "Captain, you need to see this," called Yi-jin Park from her station. The science officer's voice was steady, but Jeho could hear the excitement underneath. He walked across the bridge of the research vessel New Horizon *. Earth's most advanced ship was small compared to military vessels, but it had the best sensors humans had ever built. "What am I looking at?" Jeho asked. Yi-jin pointed to the pattern on her screen. "This signal comes from just past Neptune's orbit. It's not random. Look at the mathematics in it. Prime numbers, the value of pi, basic equations. Someone is trying to talk to anyone who can understand." Jeho felt his heart beat faster. For years, humans had sent signals into space. They had listened for any response. Now something was reaching out to them. "How long has it been broadcasting?" he asked. Based on the signal strength, maybe 3 days. It's directed at Earth specifically. The captain straightened his back. The rules were clear. First contact was too important for a simple research captain to handle. He should call Earth Command and wait for orders. But Jai-Ho had not become a space explorer to follow rules when history was knocking at the door. Send a response, he said. Use the same mathematical pattern to show we understand. Yi Jin's eyes widened. Sir, protocol says. I know what protocol says, Jai-Ho cut in. But whoever sent this waited 3 days already. I won't make them wait longer while politicians argue about what to do. 20 minutes later, the response was sent. The bridge crew waited in tense silence. No one spoke. No one even seemed to breathe. The answer came faster than anyone expected. A new signal appeared, stronger than before. The ship's computer translated the mathematical patterns into simple images. A large vessel was coming. It would arrive in 6 hours. Jai-Ho finally called Earth Command. As expected, they were not happy. You've potentially endangered the entire planet, said the admiral on the screen. With respect, sir, they already knew we were here, Jai-Ho replied. They sent the first message directly at Earth. I just let them know someone was listening. 6 hours later, the New Horizon watched as a massive ship appeared near Neptune. It was at least 20 times larger than anything humans had built. Its surface gleamed like polished metal under the distant sun. A direct communication came through, now in basic English. We are the Grander. We have monitored your world for some time. We did not expect an answer so quickly. Most young species take weeks to decide how to respond. A video feed activated. Jai-Ho and his crew saw the aliens for the first time. The Grander stood over 4 meters tall. Their bodies were massive and powerful, with thick limbs and broad chests. Their skin was a deep purple, and their 4 eyes blinked in pairs. Despite their fearsome size, their expression seemed curious, even friendly. You are smaller than we expected, said the Grander representative. Yet your technology is impressive for your size. Jai-Ho stood as tall as his modest height allowed. Size isn't everything, he said. Humans may be small, but we've accomplished much. The alien made a rumbling sound that the translator identified as laughter. Indeed, that is why we have come. The galaxy has many species, Captain Jai-Ho Kim. Some are large, some are small. But intelligence comes in all sizes. We invite your species to join the Galactic Council. Jai-Ho looked at his crew. Their faces showed the same mix of fear and excitement he felt. Without knowing it, he had just changed humanity's future forever. We accept your invitation, he said. The Grander nodded at its massive head. Good. Prepare your best representatives. The galaxy awaits.